If you're familiar with the Kashmiri Gate area, you may have heard of the cemetery, Nicholson Cemetery. Is there any history behind the name Nicholson Cemetery? Where in fact there is. Nicholson Cemetery was the place where the most infamous British brigadier of 1857 was buried, John Nicholson. Who is John Nicholson? What did he do which made him infamous? What was his own life? And how was he assassinated? Let us find out in today's episode. John Nicholson, at the beginning of the mutiny, he was assigned as the commanding brigadier of the movable column, which was known as the flying column as well. It was situated in Ambala in the state of Punjab, and its job was to pinpoint and intercept any and all armies helping the Mughal mutineers against the British, and his job was to annihilate them. His own colleagues were rather afraid of John Nicholson. They described him as a soldier who was always supposed to put on a tame, but should be let free of his leases whenever the British wanted a massacre. He was the kind of person who possessed a so-called demonic energy which he used to inspire his column to move even in the blistering heat of June, and was involved very rigorously in the so-called cleansing of land. When John Nicholson arrived at Delhi, many brigadiers have already fallen, General Barnard, George Anson, etc. So he was instantly promoted to brigadier. He and Archidale Wilson, along with William Hudson, were tasked with the invading of Shahjahanabad. He had Richard Baird Smith charter a plan how to make a map to invade the city of Shahjahanabad, and he came with a very scary plan. Early morning of September 14, he would send soldiers carrying 25 pounds of gunpowder at the beginning of Kashmiri Gate as the Britishers will attack it. At the end, Lieutenant Duncan and others lost their lives, and John Nicholson took it as the opportunity, commencing himself as the king of destruction of the medieval city, took his column 1, and ran straight into the ruins of Kashmiri Gate, ready to annihilate everything and everyone he saw. But fate had other plans for John Nicholson. He took his whole army unaware of his strength and pride and the forces which were hiding in the Havelis, as he took his army through the narrow lanes from these pictures you could see. After taking his army, he was not satisfied with just capturing Kashmiri Gate. He wanted to secure all the bastions. He first secured the Moti Bastion and was heading towards the Burn Bastion, which was near the Lahori Gate. But, as I said, fate had other plans. He took his army through a lane which was barely wide enough for two people. He kept on yelling, "Forward, men! Let us go onward!" And his men begged him, saying that he was under some messianic threat and that he was leading his army to a death trap. But John Nicholson was not one to take orders. He went straight in and tried to rally his soldiers, saying, "Onward, men, forward." That was what they said, until, for the Mughals, an unknown hero was hiding somewhere in the Havelis and took a sniper and shot John Nicholson. The bullet pierced straight through him as he fell, as the so-called Lion of Punjab fell down in the common Delhi gutters. John Nicholson, the savage psychopath, was no more. The funny thing is, John Nicholson didn't die when the bullet hit him. He actually was seriously injured, but wasn't dead. But still, he was paralyzed and spent 9 days of excruciating pain at the British cantonment. But still, his bloodlust hadn't finished. Archidale Wilson took his column back because they were severely injured, And when John Nicholson found out, apparently he snarled at William Hudson, saying that, "Thank God I at least have the strength to shoot that man." Well, that was John Nicholson. But soon after the city was captured, the flag was raised on 22nd September. He sighed a sigh of relief at the St. James Church and died there. He was buried at John Nicholson Cemetery, which became a rallying point for many Victorians after having built that cemetery on a Mughal garden. But John Nicholson, before he became this imperial psychopath, a savage, and a bloodlust, who was he? He was a friendly person who had a brother, Alexander Nicholson, who was his younger brother. They both aspired to be in the army. Well, they were selected for the army. During the 17th century, the Britishers had their first Anglo-Afghan War. John Nicholson was sent at the fortress of Ghazni, while his brother, Alexander Nicholson, was sent on a battle. But the Afghans caught John Nicholson, and he was made to spend many months inside a cage, in a filthy, cramped, congested cage, which was one ego John Nicholson could never ever get rid of. After the English army of retribution came and saved him, John Nicholson came out and found his brother. This is a part which most British authors tend to skim over when talking about John Nicholson, but he found his brother lying dead. Apparently, he died during the battle and fell down the Khyber Pass region and was attacked by the Afghans. Seeing him, he got into trauma and was paralyzed with fear, anger, and vengeance. It was said that every mutineer he killed, every village he burned with his flying column, was an act of vengeance of his brother who died 15 years ago mercilessly. But still, the end cannot justify the means, how he wanted to find vengeance. And if you want to know more such interesting stories, whether it's about Delhi or 1857, please stay tuned to our channel. And thanks for your time.